These recipes are unbelievably delicious. And I always have ground beef in my freezer, but sometimes you just want to try something different with it. Maybe find a new family favorite. Hey y'all, I'm Valerie, and welcome to my kitchen. In today's video, I'm sharing 5 dinner recipes using ground beef. Y'all are gonna love these. Okay y'all, let's get started. This taco tortellini is a perfect one-pot meal and we all love it. In a large skillet, I'm browning up 1 pound of ground beef. I just broke that up and let it cook until it was completely cooked through. I used a paper towel to get rid of most of that grease. Now I'm adding in a 15-ounce can of tomato sauce, followed by 1 can of Rotel. I like using the mild, but you can use hot if you prefer. I also added 1 can of corn, and I did drain that. Now for the beans, I do 1 can of Pintos. I do rinse them really good and drain them. Oh, and if you'd rather, you can use black beans instead. I added half a cup of sour cream, followed by 1 packet of taco seasoning. Now you're going to stir this and give it a good mix before we add in the rest. I've got a 19-ounce bag of cheese tortellini. This is the frozen kind. I'm just adding that in. I also added in half a cup of water. Now I do want to mention, if you're using a different kind of tortellini, you'll just want to let that cook or let it continue to cook here according to the directions on the back of the package. And you'll want to stir this every couple minutes to make sure nothing sticks, but I just covered mine up and let it continue to simmer until that tortellini was completely cooked through. Then I took that lid off and I added in about 1.5 to maybe 2 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. You'll want to stir that until it's all mixed together and well combined, and then this taco tortellini is ready to serve. This is so easy to make. It comes together quick, in less than 20 minutes actually, and it is absolutely delicious. And I love that this is a one-pot meal. I don't want to dirty any extra dishes if I can help it, especially on those busy weeknights. What is your go-to meal, say on a busy weeknight when you need to get dinner on the table fast? I cannot believe I waited this long to try Mary's meatloaf. This recipe comes from my sweet friend Mel over In the Kitchen with Mama Mel. In a large bowl, I added 1.5 pounds of lean ground beef, 1 small diced onion, and the recipe calls for a small can of tomato sauce. This was a 15-ounce can, so I only used half. I also added 3/4 cup of quick oats. Now you're going to season this to taste. Mel uses the Lawry's seasoning salt. I didn't have that though, and I also added 1 beaten egg. Now you're going to get in there with your hands and you're going to mix it up until it's very well combined. This recipe is so simple, but sometimes, it's the simplest recipes that are the absolute best. I've got an 8 by 8 inch baking dish here, and now I'm just adding in that meatloaf mixture. Or if you want to use a loaf pan, you can do that too. I'm pretty sure Mel uses close to the same size pan, which does make it a little thinner, which helps it to cook a little faster. Now this bakes at 400 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes. And right before it comes out of the oven, we're going to make up a quick glaze to pour over the top. In a large measuring cup, I added the other half of that can of tomato sauce, 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, my husband likes it sweet, a little squirt of mustard, and a little splash of vinegar. You're going to mix that up and then grab that meatloaf out of the oven and then pour that glaze on top. By the way, if you're new, I would really love to have you here. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. That way you get notified of all my future videos. You do want to spread that glaze out so it covers everything on top. Then I put this back in the oven and let it continue to cook for about 10 more minutes. We gave this a 10 out of 10. And I can absolutely see why this is one of Mel's most loved recipes on her channel. I just wish I would have tried it a little sooner. Trust me, my husband is already asking for me to make this again. He couldn't stay out of it. And I just paired this with some green beans and some homemade mashed potatoes. And I'm telling you, even if you already have a good meatloaf recipe, you really need to give this one a try. And it uses basic ingredients, which I love, and I always have all those ingredients on hand. And thank you so much, Mel, for sharing this. We really enjoyed it. This was my first time making this cheeseburger hash brown casserole, and it was a winner. And yes, my hamburger meat was still a little bit frozen here. Oh, and that's 1.5 pounds of ground beef that I'm cooking up here. Now you can season this with some burger seasoning if you have it, but I'm just using garlic powder, onion powder, and some nature seasoning. And just break it up and let it cook until that ground beef is completely cooked through. Now we're going to remove it from the heat and head over to the counter with it. You'll need a large bowl for this. You're going to add in that cooked and seasoned ground beef. By the way, that was very lean and it didn't have a lot of grease, so I didn't bother draining it. Next to that ground beef, you're going to add 1 cup of sour cream, along with 1 can of cream of chicken soup. And I did want to show you this. They do make unsalted cream of chicken soup. I found it at Ingles, but you can also order it from Amazon. Now I'm going to add some seasonings to this mixture, and I added garlic powder, onion powder, and pepper. We're about to add some potatoes, and those potatoes need seasoning. Oh, and I also did a little more nature seasoning. Now you're going to give all that a really good mix. Now you're going to add in a 32-ounce bag of frozen hash browns. I used diced, but I'm sure shredded would work fine too. You're also going to add 2 cups of shredded cheddar cheese. And then do your best to mix this all together, because it's a lot. I'm using a 9x13 for this. I probably should have sprayed it with some nonstick spray, but I forgot. Now you're going to pour in that ground beef and hash brown mixture. And spread it out a little bit so it's in an even layer. Now you're going to top this off with more cheese. I was almost out of cheddar, so I used what I had left, but I used a combination of cheddar and mozzarella. Now we're going to top it all off with about 1 cup of French fried onions. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 350 for about 40 minutes. This was a winner, y'all. And you can top this with your favorite burger toppings. I topped ours with some shredded lettuce and some burger sauce. Well, I think it's actually called Secret Sauce, and I got the Great Value brand at Walmart. It's kind of like the sauce they put on Big Macs at McDonald's. This was so good, and we all loved it. And like I said, you can top it with any kind of toppings you like to put on your burgers. This Sloppy Joe grilled cheese came from TikTok. Actually, my daddy sent me the video. I did cut the recipe in half though. In a large skillet, I added 1 pound of ground beef along with half a small diced onion. I broke that up and let that ground beef cook until it was completely cooked through. I did drain that grease though, then I added in a couple teaspoons of minced garlic. Then for seasonings, I did salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. But you can season this up however you like. Now I'm adding in a small 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. Next, you're going to add in a little bit of ketchup and a little bit of mustard. And since my husband is not a fan of mustard and I felt like I added a little too much, I had to get in there and dig some out. Now the recipe called for bouillon powder. I didn't have that, but I did have the Better Than Bouillon paste, so I used about a teaspoon of that. I gave this a good mix, and then I realized I forgot to add the brown sugar, so I added that in. And that was a heaping tablespoonful of brown sugar. Now you're going to mix this all together, then you're going to bring it to a simmer and let it simmer until it thickens. And that should only take a few minutes. Now I'm going to put these grilled cheese sandwiches together. In a separate skillet, you're going to add some butter and let that melt. I'm using Texas toast, and I added some mayonnaise to the top of those. Then you're going to lay on some cheese. I'm just using the Velveeta slices. I did about 3 slices per Sloppy Joe, but you can add more if you want. Then to one of those pieces of toast there, you're going to spoon on some of that ground beef mixture. And you can put as much on there as you can get. You just want to make sure it stays on the bread there. I put a lid on this and let it cook on low heat until that cheese was melted. I took the lid off and put that sandwich together. Then I turned the heat up and then let it continue to cook on both sides until it was all browned up. When it's nice and golden brown, you can go ahead and remove it from the heat, and then this Sloppy Joe is ready to serve. This was delicious. It was easy to make. It was something a little different than what we normally have for dinner, but we loved it. And I didn't do anything fancy with the sides on this night. I just served it with some Lay's potato chips. And I had to show y'all what the inside of these looks like. That ground beef Sloppy Joe mixture was absolutely delicious. I'll definitely make these again. This is a cheesy spaghetti bake, and this recipe came from TikTok. We're starting out by browning up 1 pound of ground beef in a large skillet. You're going to cook it until it's completely cooked through, then drain that grease. And I just do that with a paper towel. Next, the recipe called for 1 packet of spaghetti sauce mix, so I added that in. Then you're going to add in half a cup of water, followed by an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. Then you're going to bring that mixture to a simmer and let it simmer, stirring occasionally for about 20 minutes. And while that's cooking away, we're going to go ahead and boil up the pasta. You're going to cook up 8 ounces of spaghetti. I'm using angel hair, but you cook that according to the directions on the back of the box. And I did add some salt to that pasta water. And when this is done, you're going to drain it and then set it aside. Now we're going to start on a cheese sauce. In a skillet, you're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. Let that melt down. Then you're going to add in 2 tablespoons of flour. Whisk it continuously, and you're going to let that flour cook down for about 2 or 3 minutes. Next, you're going to add in half a cup of water while whisking continuously. And you'll want to work fast here and try to whisk it until all those lumps are gone. Then we're going to slowly add in 1 cup of evaporated milk. And no, I did not do that slowly, and I probably should have. By the way, this is on a low simmer, but I just kept whisking until that was thickened and all the lumps were gone. Turn the mixture down to low and add 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese and 1/4 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese. And this did not call for any seasonings, but I wanted to add some in, so I did some garlic powder, some pepper, and some salt. Now you're just going to stir that until that cheese is completely melted. Then we can take all this over to the counter and put it all together. I'm making this in a 9x13. First, you're going to add in half of that cooked and drained angel hair pasta. And when you get it in there, spread it out so it's completely covering the bottom of that dish. Next, you're going to add on half of that ground beef mixture, and I tried to spread it out as evenly as I could. Now, over the top of that, you're going to pour all of that cheese sauce. And I'm sure if you didn't want to fool with layering all this, you could just mix it all together, but it does add a little something extra when you layer it together like this. You're just going to do your best here to spread that cheese sauce layer evenly over all that ground beef and noodle mixture. Now you're going to top it with the rest of those noodles and then the rest of that ground beef mixture. And to finish this off, you're going to sprinkle over 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. And if I do this one again, which I probably will, but I will definitely add more cheese. So feel free to add as much cheese as you like here. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 375 for 20 minutes. Here it is out of the oven. Now I'll be honest, it didn't look the prettiest, but this was delicious. Now there is one thing that I would change about this recipe. I would add a little extra ground beef, and I would also double the tomato sauce. So instead of an 8-ounce can, I would do a 15-ounce can. But this really was delicious. It had a lot of flavor and we all loved it. Oh, and Sammy May has a ground beef video today too, so I'll link that below, and also In the Kitchen with Mama Mel. They are 2 of my favorites. I really hope you enjoyed this video. You may also like these. Don't forget to subscribe down below for more easy recipes, and I will see you in the next one.